all for coming here for this civic engagement event. So I just want to express my gratitude for President Chu for, we literally pulled this off last minute, and he was just like, whatever you need for the community. So to his right is Bill Wylowski, and he's gonna present the Reimagine Rikers plan. And to his left is Wei Hua Chen. She's been an advocate for the Asian American community for a very long time. And so we're just fortunate to have these speakers here. And to join them, we have family association members. To Wei Hua's left is Mr. Ng? Mr. Ng, and to Bill's right is Mr. Leung. So I'm going to open the floor up for President Chu to make his remarks.
Thank you, Susan. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to CCBA. Yeah, my name is Tony Chu. I'm the president of the CCBA. So first of all, I just want to let you know that I'm so glad that Susan and Bill Wylowski conduct this meeting or this press conference. Today we talk about the Rikers Island and things like that. So I just want to let you know that I'm a retired officer on Rikers Island. I know the island and I know correction very well. From what I understand, I was in, first of all, my experience on Rikers Island is that I was a correction officer and I was also in ESU. And I also trained in the academy for a long, long time. So altogether, I had about 28 years in Department of Correction. And I got to say that I know the island. And the island need to be reformed. That's all I can say, right? And I do not believe that we should have we should have a borough jail in every borough. Inmates should stay on Rikers Island. So that's the reason why I would like to have Bill Wylowski and talk about the reform. And also Wei Hua Chen over here so at this time let me turn the microphone to Bill Wylowski so he can start with his remarks.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for inviting me today. I refer to this talk as the humane alternative, rebuilding Rikers Island. I have lived in this neighborhood for nearly 39 years and have worked by the corner of Canal and Broadway that entire time. I feel comfortable talking on this topic. New York City stands at a real crossroads. For years, we've been told that the future of criminal justice reform lies in the city's borough-based jail. A $16 billion proposal to build 4 new high-rise detention towers across the boroughs. But despite that staggering cost, the plan provides only about 4,160 beds, while the city's average daily jail population in 2024 was over 6,100. In other words, after spending $16 billion, we still wouldn't have enough space to house the people already in custody, let alone create a system focused on real rehabilitation. So today, I want to talk about a more humane, cost-effective, and immediately actionable alternative, rebuilding Rikers Island as a modern, low-rise rehabilitation campus. This proposal isn't about defending the status quo on Rikers. It's about transforming it. It's about replacing the failed image of an island of despair with one of recovery, education, and human dignity. Let's start with cost and capacity. By using Rikers Island's existing 413 acres, we can build 3.5 to 4 million square feet campus composed of 3- and 4-story facilities providing 42 to 4,500 beds for roughly $6 to $8 billion. That's about the same cost as the Manhattan and Bronx towers alone, which together are estimated at $6.7 billion. And those 2 towers wouldn't even solve the system's capacity crisis. When you combine the Rikers campus with the Brooklyn and Queens facilities that are already under construction, budgeted at about $6.9 billion, you get a complete citywide system for about $12.9 to $14.9 billion. That's $1 to $3 billion less than the borough-based jail plan, and it actually works. This low-rise model also eliminates the extraordinary expense of vertical construction, but more importantly, it creates a healthier and more therapeutic environment, one filled with daylight, access to fresh air, and outdoor space. Conditions that research has repeatedly shown help reduce recidivism and improve safety for both detainees and staff. The Rikers alternative is also far more practical. It can begin immediately using a physical construction approach, a phased construction approach, building new facilities while gradually decommissioning and demolishing all of the old ones. That means operations continue without a capacity crisis, and the humanitarian issues that plague the island today can start to be addressed right away. By contrast, the borough-based plan faces ongoing community opposition, zoning battles, and construction delays in dense residential neighborhoods. No new borough jail is expected to be open until well into the 2030s. The truth is, Rikers is already under renovation today. It just isn't being talked about publicly. We can build on that momentum with a clear, organized plan that includes swing space, something the de Blasio plan never accounted for. That's one reason overcrowding, illness, and even deaths have persisted. A phased, continuous plan in Rikers would finally break that cycle. Now let's talk about design. Because design is not decoration, design is policy made visible. The reimagined Rikers would take the form of a modern, campus-like environment instead of massive towers. Clusters of small, low-rise buildings would be organized around courtyards, gardens, and walking paths. Natural light and outdoor access would be integral, not afterthoughts. These environments support wellness, calm, and community, a setting that feels restorative and safe for both staff and those in custody. It's a place that treats people as capable of change, not as inventory to be warehoused. Second issue is accessibility and connectivity. Accessibility has long been one of the biggest criticisms of Rikers, and rightly so, but we have the tools today to fix that. By integrating Rikers Island into New York City's ferry network, we can provide direct public access for staff, families, jurors, and service providers from all 5 boroughs. That eliminates the single bridge bottleneck that has long defined the island. Dedicated ferry and shuttle bus routes can move people quickly and predictably, avoiding city traffic and connecting directly to key subway hubs. And by including a properly sized on-site courthouse designed for arraignments and intake proceedings, many detainees could have their first appearances and bail determinations completed within days, if not hours, on Rikers Island itself. This would dramatically reduce the cost and time-consuming daily transport of hundreds of detainees to multiple borough courthouses, speeding up justice while restoring dignity and safety in the process. But at the heart of this proposal is something more fundamental, the purpose of incarceration itself. A rebuilt Rikers campus would prioritize rehabilitation and successful reentry, not punishment for punishment's sake. The new design envisions 42 to 4,500 beds across a comprehensive campus featuring academic learning centers and vocational training facilities, mental health treatment programs, a working farm and greenhouse, family visitation centers and transitional housing, and on-site medical care and therapeutic services. This is not utopian, it's evidence-based. Studies show that correctional education and job training reduce recidivism by roughly 15%. When paired with mental health treatment and family engagement, the impact grows even greater. When people leave incarceration with skills, education, and restored health, they return to their communities as contributors, not as repeat offenders. And here's an additional opportunity, one that reaches far beyond the walls of any facility. If we proceed with Brooklyn and Queens as planned, assuming little can be changed about them at this point, Manhattan and Bronx can take a different path. The 2-acre site at 124-125 White Street in Manhattan, currently slated for $3.76 billion 16-story jail tower, could instead become a 10 to 12-story affordable housing development. This would provide 400 to 500 units of nearly 1,000 bedrooms of 100% affordable housing for working families, seniors, and residents of Chinatown who are being priced out of their neighborhood. The ground floor could include community spaces and retail, turning what would have been a detention tower into a civic asset. Likewise, the Bronx site at 745 East 141st Street could pivot towards housing or community infrastructure. Redirecting the $6.7 billion currently set aside for these two jail towers would make a dent in New York's housing crisis, while the Rikers campus simultaneously addresses both capacity and rehabilitation needs. New York City's decision on how to solve its incarceration crisis will reverberate across the nation for decades. As the country's largest jail system, we set the model that cities from Los Angeles to Chicago to Philadelphia will follow. If we proceed with the borough-based jail plan, spending over $16 billion on high-rise detention towers that won't be completed until the 2030s, we entrench an expensive institutional approach that constrains programming, space, and perpetuates the warehousing model that has failed America for generations. But if we rebuild Rikers Island as a modern, low-rise rehabilitation campus, emphasizing education, mental health treatment, vocational training, and family engagement, we demonstrate that evidence-based therapeutic environments can reduce recidivism, while costing billions less and actually meeting our capacity needs. But if we rebuild every major American city faces the same challenge: aging jails, rising costs, and the choice between punishment and rehabilitation. The Rikers Renewal Campus offers the nation a proven path forward, one that prioritizes successful reentry over institutional warehousing, invests in affordable housing instead of urban jail towers, and finally aligns our criminal justice infrastructure with what actually works to break the cycle of incarceration and create safer communities. So the choice before us is actually quite simple. Communities can gain neighborhoods instead of jail towers. The justice system can gain modern, humane infrastructure designed for rehabilitation, and individuals can return home with education, job skills, and mental health support instead of trauma and hopelessness. If we can build a new airport on a challenging site just next to Rikers Island, we can certainly build a modern justice and restoration campus on Rikers Island. This isn't about holding on to the past. It's about imagining a smarter, more compassionate future, one that treats rehabilitation as the measure of justice and incarceration rates. Not incarceration rates. The question then is not whether we can afford this humane alternative. The question is, can we afford not to? Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. At this time, I would like to turn to the microphone to Wei-Hua Chin. Wei-Hua Chin is the executive in CACA, am I correct?
Not CACA, it's Upgrading New York. The Chinese American Citizens Alliance Upgrading New York. So it's CACA GNY, Kakagni.
I understood.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Thank you, Wei-Hua. Okay.
First of all, I want to say this is a tremendous crowd that we have in this room. So many people here have worked very, very hard for this community. And not just this issue, but so many issues, okay? So many issues are covered here, but you see us united here about the jail. I do not know a single person in Chinatown who wants a jail here. Yeah, there's nobody who does. You think it's even funny, right? Because they sell it as a community-based jail because the community wants it. Well, you start off with that, nobody asked us. Nobody asked us, and we're having heads shaking over here. Nobody wants this jail here. And Bill, you were generous. You said that it was going to cost only something like $19+ billion to have the borough-based jail. No, the current estimates are something like $33 billion. Where do you think this money is going to come from?
My pocket.
Your pocket. Well, yeah, it's not just your pocket, but, you know, it's pockets of people who will be leaving, right? Because things are not being served here. Our communities are not being served here. And one of the things that we are missing too in talking about Rikers and jails is we have to also take care of our communities. It is about rehabilitation. We cannot have people going into this penal system, into the criminal justice system, and coming out worse than they came in. Our goal is to make them come out better than what they used to be. So that is certainly something that we have to do. But we also have to think about our communities and how to serve them. Our Rikers Island now has something like 60% of the detainees with mental illness. Just think about that. They need services there, and it is not being done. There's room there in Rikers, and we should be using it. There's plenty of room. I've done tours there. I've seen the space. There is space. But they have to also make it happen so that people can use those services and become something that we want. We want people who are able to contribute to our society and be rehabilitated and served as taxpayers of that.
Sure.
Because they're gonna want the money, and you were saying, where
Let
does
them
money
do
come
camping
from?
in my office building.
That's
They're
right,
setting tent in my office building.
right. So I think that we should also remember, what is the history of Rikers Island? Why was Rikers Island built? Well, before Rikers was built, we had what was essentially borough-based jails. In fact, it was more than borough-based jails. There were jails throughout the city, small local ones, and they were being misrun. There were lots of problems in the local jails. And so they built Rikers. In the 1930s, it opened and consolidated all of the different jails so that we could have better services, in fact. So remember that if you find that there are problems here at Rikers, and you don't change anything at Rikers in the management and how criminal justice and how the detention is done, we're gonna have not one Rikers problem, we're gonna have 4 Rikers problems.
Yep.
We don't need 4 Rikers problems. We should take that Rikers that we have now, fix it, make it a model for everybody. And we have to think about, how do we serve our communities that don't want this? Having something like affordable housing makes a tremendous amount of sense. I don't know anybody who's against affordable housing. So you have politicians that say, let's take something that nobody likes, a jail, and put it into Chinatown, and it's not a NIMBY situation. We have plenty of jails over here, okay? So anybody who says that, oh, Chinatown is racist, they don't want people from outside coming in, no, it has nothing to do with that. We're perfectly happy having something that everybody wants, which is affordable housing. That will serve us, and in fact, if we think of what we should be doing with our detainees, it's to prepare them to come out of the system and say, I too can be part of the regular community, having a space in affordable housing. Now, I mentioned the figure that we've got something like 60% of the inmates, detainees, that are mentally ill. 20% are actually seriously mentally ill. You're not talking about minor problems that you need extra time for a test, okay? We're talking about serious problems. And if you look at what's happened there also, because of all the other changes in the criminal justice system, because of cashless bail, because of raise the age, we have criminals now that are much more violent than they used to be. So Rikers Island used to have double the number of detainees that are now there. But now that we've reduced the numbers, we actually have some of the more serious criminals, many much more violent criminals. And if you go in and you can see that nothing is being done to address their mental health issues and drug addiction issues. There's a lot of drug problems at Rikers. A lot of the detainees are addicted, and there's a lot of smuggled drugs that go into Rikers. Tony
Correct.
knows.
Yes.
See? It's a tremendous problem there. So if you think about what's happened in Rikers, that there's the drug problem inside that is going in. It's not just that the detainees need drug rehabilitation services, but we have to stop the drug inflow as well as the weapons inflow. If you ever saw the pictures of how many weapons are caught before they get in, you have to think of this problem metastasizing like a cancer into our local jails. Are we ready for that with the same management at Rikers? No. So I think that we have to think of what our communities want. And Chinatown is united in this. In all the other places too, they don't want the borough-based jails, and we have a much better solution. The jails, for the borough-based jails, it won't be until the mid-2030s that they will be completed. And you know how it is with projections by the city. If they say the 2030s, 2040, right? You know, we can take bets on how long it's going to take for the completion of the borough-based jails. However, fixing Rikers is the right thing to do. There's so much space, you could close one wing, then, as you say, phase it in, and put in another wing, and you could have the services all upgraded and modernized, and we will accomplish something for the people who are detained there. We have to do something for them, and then we also serve our communities everywhere. Thank you so much.
Thank you to our panelists for providing the community the reimagined Rikers plan and also what the community really is advocating for. I'm gonna open it up to the floor. I just want to recognize District Leader Justin Yu is here. We also have Judge Doris Lynn Cohen is here. We have Commander Kenny Wong from American Legion. And so I'm gonna open the floor up for
Nancy.
Oh, hi, sorry, District Leader Nancy Tong from Brooklyn, so my apologies. So I'm gonna open up the floor for comments or questions, if there are any.
Can you comment on what the global trends in terms of civilized countries and jails? As I understand, building a mega jail would be opposite that most of the civilized countries are doing.
Yes, what is being proposed by the borough-based jail plan is totally counter to what every other country that has far less problem than we have here in New York City has been doing. They recognize that low-rise facilities with access to daylight, nature, and greater support services reduce recidivism.
Such as the proposed plan.
Correct. That's what this plan is totally based upon. Our study of systems in Norway and in other countries, and we actually have a few in this country as well that are successful low-rise buildings. It has been a well-known fact in the architectural world that skyscrapers are not the answer to anything except to house the most wealthy people in the world who choose to be anonymous. Everyone else who needs some degree of attachment to their place and to their community survives much better and is more likely to be comfortable in a low-rise area. We point out on our chart that we are trying to jam these 4,160 beds in less than 10 acres. We have 413 acres to work with out on Rikers Island. Yes, it's contaminated, and that's why every last building that's out there needs to be razed to the ground. We need to start all over so that we can address the issues of the ground contamination, because the vast majority of Rikers Island is a landfill. Back when those buildings were built, people didn't understand the environmental consequences of building on a landfill. We do now. We do have techniques and engineering solutions to solve those problems. And I'd like to point out that whatever comes in the future to Rikers Island, if it weren't a reimagined restorative justice center like the one we're proposing, that measure will have to be taken anyway, because no human should be out there standing on top of the environmental mess that island represents. So we are going to spend those dollars, whatever we do out there. And it just simply makes the most logical sense to build low-rise buildings that we can begin one at a time immediately, and get everyone who works and who is there access to daylight and nature. That's how we're going to reduce recidivism.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. My name is Edward Kucha. How are you? And I've got one extremely slight criticism of what you folks have been saying. You keep saying Chinatown opposes the building of the mega jail, but you're leaving out Little Italy. Now, Little Italy is a block away. I have the great good fortune to live on the corner of Canal and Mulberry Streets as a good Italian boy who married a wonderful Chinese woman. And I've been authorized by Little Italy, the Little Italy Merchants Association, the San Gennaro, all the Little Italy associations and people, they're not that big, but still, fully agree with this plan, are fully opposed to the jail. Please, there's strength in numbers. Don't just say Chinatown, say Chinatown and Little Italy. Yes. It's all along that. But Little Italy's really close. Okay, it's a block away. Mulberry Canal is a block from the jail. So it's both. And thank you, Susan. You're doing a great job.
By the way, I should mention before the next question comes that we mentioned the number that there are not enough beds. We've got 7,000 some detainees now at Rikers, and if you go down to 4,000, do the math. Do the math. You'll have 3,000 some detainees, and as I said, they are ones who need the most help, who will be out on the streets. There is nothing other than the street for them, unless you build more borough-based jails. And you could imagine how many years that will take, how much money that will take, and what those communities will also say. So just do the math. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense for the beds. It doesn't make sense for the cost. It doesn't make sense for the years. And there's no way that Rikers can close in 2027 and have 7,000 some detainees out on the street. So please.
I think government at its worst is when they don't listen to a community. This is what we're facing today. Now, unfortunately, all the politicians that voted for this proposal are no longer here. And yet what they left with us is a mess. Yes. And so we need to get those that are representing us to see our way. What does it mean to live a good life? A government should never kill a community under the rubric of criminal justice reform. That is not reform. That's an ultimate destruction. So I ask, what if the government made a mistake in estimating the number of people? What are they going to do? They're going to add more stories to already 40-story or 25-story building? Or they're going to take another building or another building? What does that do to the community? They have to answer that. They really have to think and look deeply to see what we have built, what our forefathers have built. Almost 200 years. From the people that came here with no status, that had to buy their way in, paper sons, and they left with us today. what we have. So when City Hall or anybody else, all of these uninformed politicians who thinks that they know it all, and they want to ram everything down our throat and say, criminal justice reform is what's needed. Yes, we agree, but think it through. You have not thought this entire process. Now, Bill had mentioned, and I agree, why don't we put all the courthouses at Rikers Island? So we don't have to bus criminals into Lower Manhattan. You could dedicate lines of transportation for the judges. Make them work day shift, night shift, afternoon shift. After all, community and justice reform has to do with people getting quick justice. And you don't lock them up and wait for a judge. You should have judges around the clock. So those that are wrong get to be heard immediately. If they are locked up incorrectly, well, reform that. And that's a simple architectural urban design technique. You don't move a massive amount of people to meet up with 5 judges. And meanwhile, they're all sitting there waiting for the judge. So part of this reform is physical, transportation, the process itself, the judges, the guards, all of those are part of it. And of course, mental health. Yes, that's a big part of it. And you gotta have hospital, you gotta have people also there. You can fit all of that on White Street. That 30-story building isn't gonna do it. And it will just end up taking more. And you know what happens when they take more? We left nothing for our children. And that's gonna be a tragedy.
Hey, so I have to say, when I heard you talk about the NIMBY and racism label that gets thrown at this community, I think it's important for people to realize that there has been a jail at that very same location in this community for well over 180 years. So I think any pointing fingers like that is misdirection at best. But I have a practical engineering question that circles around that. The reason that there's been so many jails at that location, I think this would be the 4th one, maybe even the 5th one, historically speaking, going back on over 180 years, is that they've structurally fallen apart and failed. They start to sink down because it's a swamp and there's an underground stream that passes through that site. So I want to ask, from an engineering and architectural standpoint, has anything materially changed in that period of time that would make this thing easy to mitigate and reduce risk to the rest of the community around it from groundwater? And then lastly, conversely, we look at Rikers Island, we hear that people say that it cannot be rehabilitated because it was landfill. But are there mitigation strategies that have been used around the world for those kinds of sites?
Those are 2 questions that actually hit me in my greatest love, which is the history and growth of Lower Manhattan. The Collect Pond was befouled when they built the canal, that's Canal Street, that allowed the fur trade to get into the pond. They built tanneries, and we know they used urine in the tannery process, and what had been the source of drinking water for the Lower Manhattan was befouled in the late 18th century. It was filled between 1800 and 1810, and in that period of time roughly, and our technology wasn't great. As a result, buildings sank, which is why the 5 Points and the slum that developed in this neighborhood, which became the home because of its inexpensiveness for immigrants as the immigrant communities came to New York. So it became convenient to build the first major jail of New York City, and it was a jail called the Tombs, where the Collect Pond Park is right now, is where that first stood. The engineering technique that we have now that they did not fully have the capacity of doing back then is that we can build deep pilings. By drilling deep pilings into the ground, we are able to build on top of this poorly filled in site And we can also, by capping and capturing the gases that come out from underneath and taking them to the high atmosphere, we can make buildings habitable that otherwise might not be. That's something the neighborhood, all our old buildings in this neighborhood are facing now. I think that where the hubris of this project that's being proposed right now for the Manhattan site comes in is twofold. One, to think that you actually can solve the recidivism and incarceration problem by building a skyscraper, which you can't. They're going to solve the bed shortage by just packing more people in there, which is going to work to the opposite intent of trying to provide good programs. All the things are going to work against their master plan goals. The second piece of hubris they have is parking the sheer number of cars that they're going to try to park underneath the building, which just is sort of a silly idea to begin with. That we're going, the most expensive construction you can build in New York City is to build down into the water and park cars. And it's totally, all these problems don't need to exist for us because we have Rikers Island that we can rebuild, reimagine, and rename, which is one of the reasons why I like to call it the New York Restoration and Justice Center. We must get rid of the Rikers renewal name. It's just too laden with things. So, and a good example of how to solve the environmental issues that live on the landfill Rikers Island currently is taking place out at the Fresh Kills dump, or took place there. We have reclaimed the dump as a park. It's not a dump anymore. The sanitation department has consolidated their footprint into one teeny corner, into two very large garages, one of which I was honored to be able to work as a part of. And one of the things that we've done and are doing in that building is managing the environmental waste that comes up, the air that comes up from underneath. There's an entire system, and it's a cost. That's all it is. It's a dollar cost to build. Now that we have the 413 acres that represent Rikers Island, we will need to expend that dollar cost to make it environmentally safe for whatever would be placed there. Even if it was just solar panels, people would have to go out there and take care of them. We wouldn't want them walking on that. So this is an expense we're going to spend. And Rikers Island with 413 acres can fit all of these things. Not only reimagined and re-envisioned incarceration system, but it can also be a sustainability center. And if we do a good job in the big long haul, if we think about a 100-year arc, 200-year arc on trying to reduce crime and mental health issues in the city, we take those buildings back down and we reclaim it for more for other things. Low-rise buildings are easy to manage this way. A skyscraper, we can't do it. The day this borough-based jail is built, actually the day they put the shovel in the ground and start the foundation, it will be a dinosaur. It will already be out of date.
Okay, we have time for one more comment, and we're gonna leave it for Justin to close.
District Leader of the Democrat Party of 62 District. I'm very happy to hear you propose today. I think it's like music to our little Italy and Chinatown years. And when the Mayor de Blasio proposed to move Rikers Island to the so-called neighborhood jails, we were wondering why he is against the trend of the urban design in modern world. You just mentioned that your model is like Sweden or Norway. They moved to their jail from inner city to much open area, and the area low-rise housing of these prisoners. They have sunshine. They can have a recreation facility. They have a psychiatric center. They can have everything they want to have. I just come back from visit Asia. I went to Japan, Taipei, and Thailand and Singapore. Tokyo and Taipei already moved to their inner city jail to the open area. And just like you mentioned, the site of Tokyo and the Taipei old jail now is a very vibrant residential and commercial area. And in Bangkok and in Singapore are doing the same thing. Why New York City do everything against the trend? But now you reverse this trend. I think we are very happy to hear it. And your plan is very comprehensive. You answer all the questions who has stopped restoration of Rikers Island. You make a traffic plan. You have all kinds of facilities, especially we mentioned about the mental illness people. They can have top-rated psychiatric facility on Rikers. We can do that. And I think Judge has sent a lot of people to jail. And she knows better. You know, Rikers Island is much better than neighborhood jail. And our president, Tony, he has been working the Rikers Island for 20 years. He knows the problem. The problem is not move Rikers Island to Chinatown and the Little Italy. Let's fix Rikers Island. Leave us alone. Thank you very much.
Thank you everyone for coming. I just want to thank Bill Bylowski. I met him in 2022. No, 2022. And he brought this plan to my attention, and I'm so glad that I'm able to champion this with all the community leaders, because it takes a village, really, to get things done, and I'm so grateful for our subject matter experts here. I want to thank President Chu for literally putting on this last minute. And if you are able to stick around, Andrew Cuomo, the candidate, will be here to address this plan as well. He will be here around 2:30, 2:45. So if you can stick around, you can ask the candidate questions yourself.
As I said before, Bill, your study was available a long time ago, but no politician pay attention. But those politicians are gone. So what we need to do is we should make the same pitch to those that are representing us today. Never mind those that you've spoken to 2, 3, 4 years ago. They don't matter.
We're starting that today.
You got to start that today. So I asked the chairman here to mobilize. You need to get this message out, because they knew about it then, but they didn't want to act, and they're not here anymore. So we got to get at those who matters, right? Cuomo's going to be here. All right, let's gather around. Thank you, Susan.
Thank you. Okay, so I'm gonna break up this table and set up for the next one, so you guys can come back, and you guys can hang out here, it's up to you. But he'll be here at around 2:30, 2:45.
Yeah, sure.